Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Matt the Family Guy, Kent the Cat Guy, Jacqueline from JP Mint, and Greg the Single Guy, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best kept secret in education. You've got it, international teaching. Welcome to the show. This is Greg from the International Teacher Podcast. I'd like to welcome you to our new episode. And our guest today, well, before we get to the guest, we're missing Kent. I don't know where he is. He's probably taking a cat bath or something. But we do have JP. How you doing today, JP?
Hey, it's midnight in Mexico. Woohoo!
That late? I'm so sorry we did this so late. Oh, wow.
That's all right. That's okay. I will do this because we've got a friend of mine.
Another friend of mine, JP.
Greg.
The whole world knows JP Mint, okay? Tracey is coming to us from Istanbul. It's not Constantinople, it's Istanbul. And her name is Tracey Zimmerman-Sakalli. I have never met Tracey before, but let's get to know Tracey. How you doing, Tracey?
I am well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show.
What time is it there? Well, it's like 8. It's like 9 a.m. in the Middle East, and it's like midnight for JP. What about you, Tracey?
It's 9 a.m. here as well.
Do you have school on like
Saturdays.
Sunday through like Saturday, Sunday? Do you have school?
No.
That's your weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask because somewhere around the world, we have different work days. And I know that in the Middle East, we only work from Sunday through Thursday, and we have Friday, Saturday off. So I was a little bit late this morning. I got my days mixed up. Can you get us started a little bit with a little elevator version of your story of going overseas?
So when I was in university, actually, I think New Zealand had on this whole, they needed teachers. And so there was this big push to go to New Zealand and teach. And so that was always like a goal of mine. I never made it, but I think that was part of my, desire to try and explore other parts of the world. But I guess another part of it too was that my mom's brother, my uncle Terry, he lived in Japan and he was a professor there and married a Japanese woman, Auntie Kumi. And he's been there. I mean, if I've been in Istanbul for 19 years, he must have been in Japan now for nearly 40 years.
So yes, we're foreshadowing. Tracey has been in Istanbul for 19 years. 19 years. Foreshadow. Okay.
I think those two pieces kind of come together. My grandparents on my mom's side too, great adventure. I guess if you live in Saskatchewan in the early 1900s, you're adventurers, right? So I think that a part of it also plays into things, but lots of travel on my maternal side anyway. So I taught in Saskatchewan for 6 years and I got really bored pretty fast. And so was talking to a teacher friend of mine, and she had a friend in Taiwan who was teaching overseas. I managed to get in touch with her and I went to Taiwan for 2 years. Then I came to Canada for a year, and by November was bored out of my mind and wanted to get out and do something else. So I went to the search job fair in Toronto and got the job in Istanbul. And so I've been at 4 different schools in Istanbul in my 19 years here.
Wow. So because of back in the 1900s when you were teaching in, did I get that right? No, you don't look like you're from the 1900s. My gosh. So because of being Saskatchewani, right?
Saskatchewanian.
Is that what you call you? A Saskatchewani?
Saskatchewanian.
Yeah, you're a Saskatchewanian. Like in Saskatchewan, what were you teaching?
So I was an English teacher in Saskatchewan. I also taught French. Let's not go there. And I
didn't know that.
Was that like secondary?
Yes, high school. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you went over and taught overseas. And what did you teach when you first went overseas?
Right. So when I went to Taichung in Taiwan, just outside actually, in a small town called Qingshui, I was teaching at Jiayang High School, which was a national school and was Taiwanese, but it had a small component of students that were in this special program, and they got to have foreign teachers for English and French. So when I went there in my first year, the classes were streamed too. I taught English and I did teach one class of French, grade 10. And then in my second year, I was the English department head and taught some upper level classes of English. It was a fascinating experience. The people were so nice. The fruit, the produce was amazing. And, being near the Tropic of Cancer, the weather was relatively mild. Not that you wanted to be on your scooter late at night in a rainstorm so badly, but it was a great experience to get started and just get your toes wet.
Okay, so Tracey, can you tell us if you ever dabbled in Mandarin? Did you ever pick up any words or phrases?
I didn't necessarily seek to learn it. I taught every night of the week for private classes to earn a whole heck of a lot of money, which was great too, because I made these relationships with people I wouldn't normally have been able to connect with, right? So that was a pretty awesome experience. And all of the parents and families were so generous with sharing their food. And I had some Korean private students, so I would get bulgogi and kimbap and all sorts of great stuff. So there is, yes, and kimchi. There is so many benefits to having that experience. But I did pick up some Mandarin, but I mean, it's pretty minimal.
Greg is often talking about how we don't need to be linguists to live overseas. When we work in international schools, just speaking English is enough because these schools are dealing with English on a regular basis. However, I know for a fact that you did pick up a whole bunch of Turkish. So would you deem yourself as completely fluent after how many years again?
19.
19 years. So you went to Search in Toronto. You met the famous John Chandler, who is also John Chandler that hired Marcos, that hired Sharon Dent, former guests on ITP, and who hired me. And that's how we all know each other, is thanks to John Chandler. So you met him in Toronto, and can you walk us through, do you remember that job fair? Can you walk us through that? Because Greg loves talking about job fairs.
Oh, I hate the job fair experience. I'm sorry, Greg, if you enjoy it. I am not a schmoozer. I did not enjoy the cutthroat aspect of that. That is not how I roll. However, I did get to meet John Chandler. So this colleague of mine from Taiwan had left Taiwan the year before I did, and she went back to Canada. And then she went to Search and got the job at the Koç School. And she said to me, just talk to John Chandler. He's a nice guy. So, I'm hanging out by the food table. I'm like, hey, John Chandler, Lisa told me to talk to you. And he's like, oh, yeah. So we chatted for a little bit. And the next thing I know, I had a note in my mailbox that said that he'd like to meet with me. So we had a nice interview chat, and I ended up getting this job. It was a very relaxed, lovely time that I had with him. He was very personable. And it sent me on this crazy ride of 19 years and hopefully more. So yeah, but I hated the job fair experience, at least at Search. There were so many people who, I'm going to say it, but maybe this is small town Saskatchewan girl, who were disrespectful and just out for blood almost, particularly at that job fair. That being said, I did go to another one in Atlanta for the Central American, South American schools. And the vibe at that one was totally different. People were so happy for you when you were getting interviews, and if you got a job offer, everybody was supportive of everybody else. It was such a stark contrast to the Toronto Search Job Fair. So I don't know. I really enjoyed that one, and I do think that that's not where I shine. I think I shine at showing somebody my skills, but not necessarily selling myself the best. So, it it was interesting to have those two experiences, and then haven't really been to a job fair since. I didn't end up going to Bolivia, where I got a job offer. I stayed at the Koç School and then made my journey around Istanbul to different schools.
So let's get into that a little bit. So because I feel like this is going to be one of those episodes where if someone is considering going to Istanbul, they're going to want to hear your take on the different schools and the different reasons why somebody would choose one school over another. So
Right.
Koç School, being a bilingual international school, means, and it was IB, and it still is, I think, right? So it would be English department, math department, the foreign language department, science department could hire foreigners. They were allowed to hire foreigners, and we did have one music teacher, I remember, but it was kind of rare to have a music teacher that was a foreigner. But history, geography, and Turkish and PE, and religion, all had to be Turkish national teachers, right?
And don't forget traffic.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Traffic school or traffic course.
So
Right.
yes, there were a number of departments that had, like representation from different countries, and the language of instruction was mostly English.
Before you guys continue about this, I missed out on this traffic thing. What's so funny about traffic? You have traffic school in your in Koç, or what? Or there was
So
at the time?
not traffic school, but there were traffic classes that kids had to take in certain grade levels, I think. And
Driver's ed?
No,
It wasn't
no.
driver's ed.
It's
It was like in
teaching
grade
you about
6.
traffic safety.
Is it
in
that
grade
bad
6,
in
they had a
Istanbul?
traffic class.
And it's a national curriculum. It's in every school all over Turkey. These kids are having to learn about safety, not crossing the road without looking, the signage, the seat belts, all of that.
Do they get a grade?
Oh yeah. They have tests.
Oh, Tracy, you're serious about this. Can someone teach social studies in this country?
At a national private school as a
At
foreigner.
any school? I was told that they don't hire social studies teachers for any school, like international schools there at all. Is that true? Or maybe at the time?
Well, in Istanbul, there's only the one international community school. And there, I would think they do, right, Tracy?
So yeah, our school
Like,
has
that's 100% English?
Yeah. So we have the NAASC and CIS and IB accreditation, right? And so we're fully international. But the previous school that I worked at, MEF, MEF, they have a Turkish school and 2 international schools, one in Istanbul and one in Izmir. They also are fully English program.
Oh.
And then there's the British International School. And there are some other ones that are popping up, and I don't know a lot about them just because they're newer and I haven't been interested or had to explore what they have to offer.
I'm still stuck on this whole driver's ed thing. This whole traffic.
Traffic.
Not driver's ed, traffic. Right?
Traffic.
Yeah, because then on my way to school now, I have to drive past the driver's ed area, which is a line of cars. And when you drive past, you're always concerned because there are so many cars of students who are learning how to drive, right? So it's yes, hyper alert when we drive past that.
So Koç School being a bilingual IB school that is K to 12, and there are dormitories, so some people do live on campus.
But only DP, they weren't IB throughout the years. They didn't do PYP and MYP.
Just IBDP.
Just DP.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell us, you did middle school, because you and I met in the middle school at Koç School. And then did you move into the high school as well?
Yeah. So I was in the middle school for 3 years. I taught 6 for a year and then 2 years of 7. And then I moved into the high school. And I think I was in the high school for a year before I started doing the DP classes. It was a great opportunity for me. I think that Koç has lots to offer new teachers. They're really supportive of professional development. The funding is there for their campus is amazing, and they've been continuing to improve it since we were there.
Wow.
Just phenomenal opportunities for teachers to grow their passions and seek out professional development and stuff like that. I think that was a really good starting point for me.
Did they send you off to a workshop, or did they, because for example, in my foreign language department, we had the guys come in to us.
So they brought somebody into the English department, and we all, like, even as a middle years teacher, I was invited because they knew I was transitioning to the high school. So we had, like, I don't know, there were so many people on our staff in the English department, like 24 or something like that. So, like, it made sense to bring somebody in. And then at one point in time, I think there was a new curriculum coming out. 3 of us went to London for a workshop. And then after that, I think they had Brad Philpott come to the school to help the rest of the teachers, just because we had so many kids doing DP, and it made sense to have everybody kind of trained and on the same page. And even just if you weren't teaching DP, that you knew what was coming, right? That they were preparing the grade 10s for what was going to come in grade 11 and 12. So they were just bringing people in, which made sense for such a big group of teachers.
And IBDP is diploma, so the upper level diploma program for 11 and 12, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Turkey also has something very unique. They have an extra year of high school for some students between grade 8 and grade 9 that they call lycée prep. Lycée being the Turkish but also French word for high school, and prep meaning like preparation. So lycée prep was between grade 8 and grade 9. And at Koç, and I'd love to hear also if it's at other schools, if you've seen lycée prep at other schools, but typically it's for those that don't have the language skills, the English language skills, to go straight into biology class, chemistry class, math class, all in English.
Content English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that preparation. So yes, at Koç, at Uskudar American, I know that Robert College has it too. So 2 of the schools that I worked at, and then another very popular and highly esteemed school in Istanbul has that program where they're really pushing, like I think they get 8 to 10 hours of English instruction a week. And then they're getting that science vocabulary, math vocabulary, so that they can continue to function with the English instruction based in that school. So yeah, and you get amazing students coming in, like the scholarship students.
I was just going to say, and they were some of the best students ever.
Yeah, who knows?
Because
Zero
they were,
English.
Greg, imagine hand-picking the best, smartest, most eager to learn students out of these little villages in Turkey, and they all come to Istanbul, and they've written contests or some kind of exams to get in. They're so brilliant. I taught them French, and I just loved teaching them. Like, it was crazy. They're trying to learn English, and they're also learning French with me at the same time. But they were just like little sponges, so fast at learning things.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak for Kent on his behalf also, as well as mine. We would have no idea what that feels like to be picked out from the crowd for being extra special and that level. We would be at the bottom level. In fact, Kent and I would be coming in really low. Do they have like an extra year for those of us that are just confused about life for between 8 and 9?
Unfortunately, no. That doesn't exist.
I take that as a no.
Oh, that awkward silence when we're waiting. Oh my God. All told, how many years were you at Koç then, Tracey?
10 years.
You got the plaque. Did you get the plaque?
I did not get the plaque. I needed to stay for 11. You had to go into your 11th year to go to the Teachers' Day celebration to get the plaque. So I didn't get the plaque. Yeah, unfortunately.
Do you get anything besides a real physical plaque? Do you get some kind of incentive? Because a lot of schools have an incentive after 10 years or after 5.
At my school now, they're recognizing people at 5 years, 10 years. and so on. So every 5
And
years.
But just
Tracey, do they
recognition.
recognize with more than just a plaque? Do you get any incentive?
So at different schools, like at MEF, you would get gold, which is a traditional thing here. I mean, it wasn't a whopping nugget, but you would get,
Like a speck?
Yeah. A chip.
Gold lining?
So, yeah, I mean, and at the school now, we get a plaque. And I mean, that's, I think, a new thing at this school. I don't think that they've been recognizing people. So it's usually a plaque, maybe a paperweight or so. So, yeah, I'm at year 4 at this school. So we'll see what happens in 2 years' time, I guess.
A question for you, Trace. Did you also teach at Robert College?
I didn't, but I have very good friends who teach there, and I have sleepovers there because our kids are friends too. So
That's so
I
cute.
do
You have-
spend. I
you
don't
have
know, Jack. Do you
sleepovers.
know
That's cute.
Andrea? Did you meet Andrea Ball?
Yeah. I know that name.
So she's at Koç right now, and so I don't know if I should have used her last name, but I
The
did.
reason I asked was because one of my favorite directors I've worked for overseas, his name was Charles Skipper. He was in Central America for a long time, and he was in Switzerland for 2 years for me, I say personally, but I had him for 2 years as a director. And then he went on to Robert College for a while. I was wondering if it overlapped because it is such a small
What years
world,
was
isn't
that?
it?
What
I don't-
years, Greg?
I think he was in Robert College. I think he went there in 2015 and stayed for a number of years, but I know that they have a different head of school now.
Okay, so Tracey, you did Koç School for 10 years, and then how did you find the new position at the new school in Istanbul?
After Koç, so I had my son in that 10th year, and then because I didn't live, the school is so far away, like it's right next to an airport, to kind of give you an idea of how far out of town it is. And it's not so far out of town anymore because Istanbul is always growing and morphing, right? Anyway, I wanted to be close to my son because he was a baby. And so I was living in Uskudar, and Uskudar American School was right basically across the street from where we were living. So I applied there and got a job. Eric Trujillo was a great director at that time, or headmaster. And so I moved there for 2 years. I really appreciated not having the service bus ride in the mornings and the evenings where I could just zip home at the end of the day. And, it was really helpful with a baby at home. And maybe I should mention that my husband and I own a boat on the Mediterranean, and he does day tours. So he's not with me in Istanbul, or with us in Istanbul much of the time. He comes in the winter from maybe December to the end of February, the beginning of March. So that being close to my son was so important to me because for most of the year, my husband isn't around. So I wanted to be located in a place that I could reach him if need be. And it was a good move for me, meeting new people, seeing a different Turkish national school that had a similar vibe as Koç, though I don't think necessarily the same funding. And because Koç was a newer school, like when we were there, I think they celebrated 25 years, but Uskudar had been around for over 100 years.
Did you say 100 years?
Over
Uskudar?
100 years, yeah.
Wow. Some schools have made it to 75 or something like that, but 100 years. Wow.
Yeah, well, Robert College would have a history like that too. And actually, Istanbul International Community School also has a history like that because the teachers at the foreign teachers at Robert School were looking for, because Robert College, can only educate kids who know Turkish, right? Because you have to do Turkish language and you have to do history in Turkish and all of these other classes in Turkish. A foreign kid can't come in and take Turkish classes and Turkish history and all of that kind of stuff in that language. So the foreign teachers at Robert College set up a school for their children to attend, which was Istanbul International Community School. And I believe we've been open since 1911, but I could be wrong.
So that's interesting
So,
that
yeah.
the teachers at a national school, meaning it's a national student body but international staff, and they couldn't teach their kids there, so they opened a new school for their kids. That's fascinating. Did I get that right?
And so there's this like a nice agreement between the two schools where the teachers who are teaching at Roberts School have benefits at our school because of this, because of the founding of the school, which is really great.
So,
great benefit, right?
A question about the curriculum at Uskudar American School with the name American. Was it American curriculum or was it IB?
No, it was, they brought in DP the first year that I was there. I was only there for 2 years. So they just started doing the IBDP program for grades 11 and 12 when I was there. Otherwise, an American curriculum? No, but you know how it is when, I don't know, for English teachers anyway, we kind of roll into a school and we start teaching what we know and what we love. And that's definitely, I feel like we had the freedoms to do that there as well. But I think that school, now, you know, it's been a few years, so, and mom brain. So, treat this with there might be some liberties that I'm filling in the blanks with, but I think it was started by American missionaries, that school.
Oh, I think I heard that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's where the American part came from. And I shouldn't say a lot of, but I believe that there are like trusts and donors from the States that still help fund that school.
Wasn't
Though it's a private
girls'
school
first? I think it was a girls' school.
Definitely.
And then it became co-ed. I think that's what I heard, because I think back when Dr. Jale Honor was, I thought she was a graduate from there or something like that, back when it was
I think you might be right. I also think Cyrus's wife was at Uskudar American too.
I love that name, Cyrus. This whole episode has such great names involved. I want to go to Istanbul just to hear all the names.
Well, and Cyrus was Canadian, so yeah. So MEF, I was waiting for Greg to make fun of that name. But what does it stand for? MEF, as in Frank.
It's FEN. FEN means science. Milietim
So
FEN.
not Milietim FEN? Oh, so it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Milietim being like education of science or something.
Is that French? You guys have a different word for everything in French.
No, we're talking
This
Turkish.
is Turkish.
Oh, okay, Turkish. The only Turkish I know is Turkish coffee and Turkish breakfast. Those are the only two
Turkish
things
delight.
I know. Ooh. The ITP is brought to you this episode by all things great that are Turkish and edible. All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a new Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at ITPXpats. That's with an S. ITPXpats is our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, we are here for you, and we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show.
All right, so let's chat about MEF. MEF is on the European side.
Yes. So that was my move from Uskudar, which is right on the Bosphorus Strait. I went across the water to Ortaköy area, and which is a very kind of posh, very beautiful area of Istanbul on the European side. And I made the change because I wanted my son to be in an international school. I told my husband before we had kids, if we get married and have kids, our kids I'll leave Turkey so that they can have a different education than what the Turkish education system has to offer, because it's so exam based and drill rotation, all that stuff. Or our kids will have to go to an international school. So I had an opportunity to move to MEF International School, and we did that. It was great. It was wonderful for Zach's education, and also for me, learning more about DP and just having the, collegiality, seeing because MEF does the PYP, the primary years program, which is part of IB. Then they skip the MYP, the middle years program, and they do the DP program. So it was good to see this range of programs. Also in the middle school, I taught Cambridge and IGCSE, so I had lots of exposure to different programs. I also got to go to a TOK conference and start teaching theory of knowledge, which was really great. I just had lots of opportunities there, and really great because we were so central. There was lots of opportunities for us to come together as a staff downtown, go for a drink and hang out, go for dinner, whatever. It just made it a lot easier because people were very centrally based. And we could live in the city, right? We could go on the bus or the tram or the metro to old Istanbul and have those experiences, which we did in Uskudar too. But I think being on the European side, the transportation opportunities there, or offerings, I should say, were a lot better at that time. Things have improved since then.
So it was just not realistic to be living on the Asian side and working on the European side. I mean, as many vapor, what are those things called?
Ferries.
Ferries. As many ferries as they have, you're not really going to be taking a ferry to work.
We did have a service bus that picked us up in Uskudar the first week or two until we were able to move. But that was just really difficult for a kid who's not even 3. And I didn't really want to be going through that. The vapor, the ferry trip in the Bosphorus is an amazing experience anytime you do it. But early in the mornings, I didn't think would be great with a little kid. So yeah, we made the move to the European side. And there are lots of people who do come on the ferries to work every morning, and it's a great option for them to be on the water because you aren't stuck in traffic. And then there are, of course, service buses that transport people to and from wherever they're going to work, which is a really great thing that I think we should talk about in Istanbul. In order to decrease the amount of traffic, companies offer their employees busing. And I think it's really amazing, especially if you don't want to get frustrated by driving in Istanbul traffic because it's intense.
All right, Tracey, ask me the question, why do I always get early to school?
Greg, why do you always get to school early?
Funny you should ask that. I have a little story that's related to our discussion. I was teaching my first year overseas, never taught in the States. And we had a service bus that brought us to school. And the bus got there at 7 to pick us up. But the parents were at school at 6:30 the first day. So we got there at 7:05 or something like that, behind a line of traffic of 50 cars. First day of school. And I got there at 7:15, which is when school starts. And there was 100 people outside my classroom because all the bodyguards, the students, and the parents all wanted to say hello to Mr. Lemoyne, their new teacher. And from then on, I hired a taxi to take me to school every day. And this guy, I mean, I just basically out of pocket paid for a taxi to pick me up at 5 a.m. before the roosters were crowing. And every day for 3 years, I had a taxi driver. Well, no, I had every day for the first year. After that, I had a taxi driver take me. And then the second year, I bought a car from somebody else. Because even though it's wonderful to have that bus, it's difficult to follow through and be on their timeline all the time. The second thing I want to say is, like you said, many schools have buses. And it's a service because either the traffic is difficult or it's hard to get a car of your own in the first. You're worried about teaching somewhere and you land in a country. You don't want to worry about the process of getting and owning a car or renting a car. But I remember in at least 3 of the schools I've worked at, they would bus us. I think the worst was Egypt, because in Egypt they have these road bumps instead of lights because nobody ever paid attention to the lights. I couldn't even grade homework in that bus because my head would hit the ceiling every time we hit one of these bumps, and it was like all the time at an intersection, right? So you brought up a great point. I mean, busing is an option that they usually provide, especially the first week or two of school to get us, or onboarding a school. They will land you and they will bus you around to get to know the area so you could focus on your paperwork and stuff. And you guys can chime in at any point like this. This is just sort of in general for our listeners. A lot of schools do this as a service, and they will continue it on in some schools based on how close you are to the school to bus you to the school at the end of the day and in the morning. But of course, I always found it was difficult because at 4 o'clock, the bus would leave in Egypt and in the afternoon, and we had to be on that bus. Otherwise, we'd have to find our own way back, right? Was it like that in Istanbul with you too, when you took the bus or service bus that they provided?
So, yeah, like I never had a car until COVID. December 2020, we bought a car just because the restrictions were so intense here. And we were basically stuck in the house. Like my son couldn't get out. I couldn't get out. It was really horrible. So I wanted that freedom to jump in a car and do something as a family and just to get out of the house. So we bought a car. So for many, many years, 14 years, I was using public transportation and taxis, and it was great. But I always used the school service bus, of course, because I didn't have a car. And some of these schools are so, outside of the city that it's going to cost you a pretty penny to have a taxi all the time. But it is like a standard in Istanbul that companies, not just schools, provide service buses to their staff to ensure that they don't plug up the roads as much as they could when they're driving. That being said, lots of people are on public transport too.
I might have to put this on my list of countries not to drive in, or cities not to drive in, because I will not drive in Iran. I've seen videos. I will not drive in Egypt. Like I won't drive in those places.
I loved driving in Istanbul. There were no rules. I just loved it. But I was gonna say, so when it snowed, which was a rare day, but when it snowed in Istanbul, the Ministry of Education would come out and cancel school. And this was why they did it. It was just a brushing of snow, but they did it because of all the service buses that were trucking kids and staff to these far out regions of the city. And it would take, I think I heard something like it took 10,000 service buses off the road when they canceled school in Istanbul. And then that way, the rest of the traffic would be able to get to work with this, dusting of snow.
But even at
Tracey,
that,
do you remember me picking you up at the airport?
It was you and I went to pick up Courtney. Courtney arrived that night. It was you and I. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's right. I will not. That is for the Patreon.
I wasn't there. What happened?
Account.
I wasn't there. What happened?
No, it's for the Patreon account. Believe you me. stormy night, we picked up my friend at the airport. But
which is a joke. We don't have Patreon, Tracy.
I know it's for our Patreon.
But school
and any
events.
listeners just joining us, Kent made up that joke about 15 episodes ago. We don't have Patreon. If we say that, it's just that we're not sharing it on the air.
But yeah, sometimes we get so much snow, school would be canceled for the week, and in that case, that was my first year. We had a snow week. And it was just after a 2-week holiday for Kurban Bayram, the sacrificial holiday.
We were running
second
out of food.
And
it was crazy.
We made a huge snowball that we were going to throw in front of somebody's door so they couldn't get out their front door, but then we couldn't move the bloody thing because it was so big. There were a lot of good times.
Here's a question then. You're from Saskatchewan. I don't know much about Canada. I used to be able to name the 9 provinces, but in Saskatchewan, do you have tons of snow?
There's 10 provinces. What are you talking about? The 9 provinces.
In my mind, there's 9. Do they have lots of snow in Saskatchewan?
Yes.
Same thing with Wisconsin, where I'm from. I mean, we never had snow days unless it was brutally like your house is under ice and snow.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's strange to be in places, even like Texas, where they have a snow day because there's a little feathering of fresh snow, but they don't have equipment to move all the snow off the roads.
They've definitely got better. But that being said, 2 years ago, we got a huge dump of snow and people were caught off guard. Down the back alley, people were just abandoning their cars on all of the streets. Like there were abandoned cars everywhere. There were people going down the streets and offering tea and soup because people were stranded in their cars. People had to sleep in the malls and stuff. It was a huge storm 2 years ago. So we had a week of snow days. Unfortunately, with the dawn of Zoom and online teaching, now a snow day isn't what it used to be.
Yeah.
So here's another geography question then. I don't know much about Istanbul, but it is on European, pardon the basics here, but it's on the European side and it's on the Asian side, split by a body of water that looks like a river.
Right.
What's the name of that body of water?
The Bosphorus Strait. Yeah.
Got it. And then on the northern side is the Black Sea?
Correct.
And then the southern side is what?
The Sea of Marmara, and then the Aegean, and then at the bottom is the Mediterranean.
So it's close to, I think of Aegean, I think of Greece, and Istanbul and Greece, or Turkey and Greece are very close. When you go traveling, Tracy, where do you go on vacation? You've been in Turkey for 19 years. You have vacations. Where do you go?
So things have changed in the last 10 years since my son was born. We spent a lot of time either going to southern Turkey, Kalkan, where my husband is, to spend time with the in-laws, my husband, and spend time on our boat.
Baby jail.
And a house there and stuff like that. We have been to Germany a couple of times to see friends. And then in the summer, and sometimes for Christmas, we go to Canada just to get the best parts of holidays there. So just this past February break, I sent Zach on his first solo trip to see his dad in Kalkan, and I escaped. I didn't tell them where I was going. And I went to Athens for a few days, and that really got the travel bug going again. And so I think it's time for Zach and I to explore more of the world than just where family is.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Tracy, do you have any police stories for us?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, and I'm glad that I listened to the episode with Sharon Dent, because that's the story I would have told you.
Donaire is the best story ever.
I'm happy to say that I don't have many police stories. I did get broken into once, and they did come and take fingerprints of everything. So after that happened, we had a big airing out of the evil spirits and cleaning party, which was really great. But I haven't, knock, knock. And as Turkish people do, pull on the ear. I haven't had police stories, so thank goodness for that. I had a story I wanted to tell you, and I should have written it down. I've forgotten what it was. In lieu of the police story, I was going to tell you a story, but I've forgotten.
Customs, like a custom story?
Oh, sure. I can tell you one of those. So, you aren't allowed to bring more than $10,000 Canadian into Canada. And so my son was not even 3 months old. And we're traveling with my husband, who's Turkish. And of course, extra unnerving for him because, he's going into Canada with his wife who's taking in 10,000 American dollars, which is more than 10,000 Canadian dollars. And so, we're just like, oh yeah, we need to get our luggage. And this dog is like jumping at my purse. And I was like, no way. He could smell the money.
That dog can smell cash.
Yes.
Ooh, dog sniffing cash.
Unbelievable. So I was so shocked. And then the officer said, oh, I know what you're after, to the dog. And he goes, how much money do you have on you? And I said, well, I have 10,000 American and probably 100 euros and 100 Canadian. And he goes, okay. And did you claim that on your form? No. Why not? Well, I was just thinking it was $10,000, right? Like I didn't think about it. And so then they took us to the area and spoke very firmly to us about we could confiscate all of your money, and I'm sitting here with my less than 3-month-old child and my foreign husband. And I'm like, why would I put my family into this position? So at one point in time, I went through, after that, my aunt keeps saying, Tracey, we keep watching Border Patrol, that show, to see if you're going to be on there. But at one time, I did go through Montreal, and I told the guy, no, I have 9,900 Canadian dollars. And he was just like, okay, I see you're trying to stay under the 10,000 mark, but if you have more than $10,000, there was some volatility here, so I wanted to move a bunch of money to Canada. He said, just claim it. Like, probably nothing's going to happen. Just claim that you have more than 10,000 Canadian dollars, and it'll be okay. So yeah, it was a super stressful time, that moment. But what's really interesting is the next time, so I have my travel wallet, right, where I keep all my foreign money. And so the next time I traveled to Canada, a dog came up to me and still smelled that money from the last trip. And when the officer came, he said, how much money do you have on you? And I opened my wallet, I'm like, I have $2,000, and I don't have anything. So it's really fascinating that the dogs could still smell that, because I only use it when I travel, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, beware.
I had a girlfriend like that once. She could smell if I had even $1 extra in my wallet. We're not together anymore.
But Greg, this is what Canadians have to do, because Tracey's not the only Canadian that has traveled with over $10,000 in cash on her midriff. I also did so because the banking fees are ridiculous. To wire money home was ridiculous. And if you were going home in the summer anyhow, you might as well just strap it around you. But I always said to my mom that when I did this, I said, Mom, make sure you get my body if my airplane goes down, because there's going to be a wad of cash around my midriff. But I always filled out the form, Tracey. I always filled out the form. It was a super easy form, a PDF, just print it off, boop, 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 and then fill it out. And they always ask, why do you have over 10,000? And I would say, because your banking fees are ridiculous. And he would just look at me and be, okay, just move along. You could see like there was an argument waiting there. Okay, miss, you could just move along.
Well, I tell you, I go home to the States, and since I'm from the U.S. and I have access to all this very easily, I'll go into a bank and I'll say, I need to have $5,000 in hundreds, crisp hundreds. Because if I go visit Mexico, if I go visit Central America, if I go to Asia, I always need to have hundreds because I know that it's cold, hard emergency cash, right? And I don't know about you guys do that or not, but that's the way I travel. I always make sure I have a little bundle under the mattress. Or do you guys both agree? You're both nodding.
For
That's an
sure.
affirmative, listeners. They usually have a couple $1,000 on hand, especially with a family. You need to have emergency cash. And that's great advice, especially. And the reason I say $100 bills is because nobody questions a $100 crisp US dollar bill in all of my travels. I've never had a problem cashing it, and you get the best price, even if you have to do it black market for or a quick exchange for an emergency. And that's really what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I always have a bunch of different currencies. Actually, because we live in Istanbul, we have an emergency earthquake bag right at the entrance.
And
of
that's
our
how you know you're
apartment.
traveling too, right? You look in my wallet, I usually have 3 different currencies.
Yeah.
I always have euros and dollars and whatever country I'm planning on going to. I'll be going to Maldives real quick, and I'm going to, in about a month, I'll have Maldivian whatever they're called. And then I'll have my euros and my dollars. I forgot. I can't believe I forgot. Maldivian something. I'll get back to you on that on the Patreon.
So Tracey, tell us. No, I want to hear about this earthquake bag. What's in the earthquake
Oh,
bag?
it's go bag.
What's in the earthquake bag? Yeah. So blankets, sleeping bags, medications, dried food, clothing, medical equipment. We have a fire extinguisher, a fire blanket. We have 10 liters of water, which is actually beside the earthquake bag. Zach's in charge of lugging that out if we can get out. Yeah, so that is, of course, obviously since last February, that's a real concern because Istanbul is on serious fault lines. And since I've arrived, they've been talking about the big earthquake in the next 50 years. So there was a huge earthquake in 1999. And so it's a real thing. Oh, I also have an escape ladder under my bed so that we can roll that out of the bedroom
I don't know
window.
anybody in my life has ever said that in a sentence.
Yeah.
I have an escape ladder under my bed. But you learn how to live where you go to live. You have to assimilate, and part of that is safety.
It's, I think, too, with a child, right? You're extra cautious. If I was still single, I don't know that I would have all of these things. But definitely, like you can see the anxiety in the kids, too, based on what happened in February of last year. It's intense.
Not to make light of earthquakes and earthquake emergency bags, but I do have, since I taught in Honduras my first year, I thought I'd share this with you, and I'll make it public. Why not? We talk about these things. I had a shark bag that I kept in my classroom. And that's basically, if you think about the word, not to be rude, but if you're going to fart, right, and something else comes out instead, it's really gross. And I was standing in front of my 5th graders, my second year of teaching, being in Central America, things like that happen, right? And I stood in front of my class, and I thought I was going to fart, and all of a sudden, bam, something else happened. And it was terrible. I know you're both laughing. It's a funny, terrible story, but ever since then, I've had an emergency bag with extra clothes in a backpack. I have extra clothes. I have some Pepto-Bismol. I have a number of things, and now handy wipes, of course. That's just part of teaching, right? You're teaching in front of 30 kids, and something emergency happens. You have to have a backup bag, right? It'll save you from that trip home. So, we have emergency bags of different sorts, right? I still have one today. Yeah, 20 years later teaching, I still have an emergency bag because I teach elementary, right? And it's gross, but it's a reality.
I just never heard anybody call it a shark bag.
Well, I learned that word a long time ago, and it was a funny word, so I thought I'd keep it. But it's an emergency to-go bag. Otherwise, in reality, the other thing is I have for purposes of evacuation, because of politics or something like that. At most places I've lived in my history, we've had things like you need to go somewhere, you need to evacuate. And a lot of times it was political. So you'd have all different kinds, people have all different things, especially with families. But my rule of thumb is I have cash and my cell phone and my passport. And I can grab those in 30 seconds and leave. I can buy anything that I need to on the way, right? But other people have their political bags. You know, they have extra food, they have water, they have flashlight, they have all these things. I don't know. I guess it's a matter of choice. You learn how to live where you're living, and that's part of the assimilation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, you guys are Canadians. You probably have bacon or something in your to-go bags.
So Tracey, you landed at maybe your last school, in Istanbul?
Are we at that age?
I don't know. We'll see. So I have my son hopefully will graduate in a little over 7 years. And then it is a little over 8 years. I will be able to start collecting my Turkish pension. So I don't know what the goal is, right? We have this house down south where we have almond trees, orange trees, lemon trees, grapes, mulberries, olives. We've got pumpkins and squash and peppers and eggplant and artichokes and beans, you name it. We can pretty much grow it. So, you know, that sounds really appealing to me. However, you know, as a teacher, I think that we're all goers and doers. And I worry that I will get bored of the farm girl life really quickly, which is part of the reason why, you know, I left Saskatchewan to begin with. So I know there will be more. If I decide to retire in 8 years, there will be more that I want to do and see and, you know, develop. And who knows where the world goes in that time and what kinds of things we can do online or, you know, that kind of thing. And I mean, Mexico. Yeah.
We need to have that episode pretty soon for those of us over 50. We need to have a panel. We need to do a series of things of talking about what's after they push us out, or what's the possibility of if they push us out. They're going to have to do that to me kicking and screaming, Tracey. And JP knows this. I'm going to be like 90. I'm going to be still in the school system somehow.
With a shirt bag.
With a shirt bag.
But for more reasons than one.
I'm going to have to add that to my 3 things I take to every country. Right now it's 4. I forgot about that.
Oh, my God.
The story's out. Tracey, I'm going to ask this because JP didn't.
Okay.
Are there 3 things that you take with you from school to school, country to country, when you travel? 3 things.
You mean besides my child?
I think that's included.
Besides.
Kent includes his wife and his cats, too.
And his cat. Mm-hmm.
My Canadian, Saskatchewanian work ethic, that goes with me everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think that that's a major part of who I am and what I bring to a community and a school and my workplace. I take my friendships with me, my colleagues, right? Mm-hmm. And brainstorming with them, whether they're working with me still or not.
I feel so little now because my answer is ice and a maid. And you're like all these, my work ethic, and I'm like shirt bag. I feel so insignificant right now. What a great answer, though. Your work ethic has to go with you everywhere you go. That's intrinsic, right?
Yeah.
I love that answer.
And I haven't figured out what my 3rd thing is yet. I guess, like passion for my subject matter, for traveling, for having these experiences with kids and colleagues and administrators, and that desire to continue to learn and grow, right?
And joy, right?
Yeah.
Joy.
Yeah.
Passion for education is joy. I love this conversation. I've learned so much about Istanbul. I know the word Bosphorus before I asked you. Full disclosure, I knew that answer. I'm looking at a map. I want to go there and visit. I really do. You've been to what? three different schools in the same country, which is fascinating. Four, like I said, and it's amazing to talk to you about the differences in those schools. So I'm so happy we had time to talk with you.
Yeah.
We've been on for about an hour, so I was hoping that we could give you some time for some final thoughts to share with our listeners.
So just like I'm speaking to you, Greg, as somebody who wants to visit Istanbul, it is Turkey. Turkey is the land of contrasts, right? You'll see somebody driving a horse-drawn cart selling garlic out the back of the cart, and you'll see, like a Maybach right next to it. Like it's so extreme, you can't believe that it's happening in front of your eyes. Like the markets that with their array of colors and smells and the vibrant nature of just the energy walking through these produce markets, but also the Grand Bazaar and the Spice Bazaar in the old town. The water brings such a wonderful element to Istanbul, but also all of Turkey, because so many parts of the country have access to one of the many seas that are surrounding it. The people, you can't say more. I'm going to get teary. The people, yeah. The food is phenomenal.
Oh my gosh, the food is so good.
So many flavors, so many great things to try out. So many differences where you're in Istanbul and you have this cosmopolitan, metropolitan experience, and then you go to Eastern Turkey and you have like the Euphrates, right? And you get to have that experience and take yourself back to Mesopotamian times, and you can go on a yacht and go on the Mediterranean for a cruise, and you can go skiing in Eastern Turkey, but also near Istanbul, downhill skiing. And let's not forget my favorite place, Cappadocia, right, with the fairy chimneys and the history that is there. And there's so much, and never mind all of the ruins that you can explore, whether it's the heads on the top of Mount Nemrut or, going to Ephesus, to Selçuk and seeing the ruins there, or the calcium travertines in Pamukkale. There's so much to advertise for this place. You haven't given me enough time, but so much to offer. Istanbul is a hub. It is alive any time of the day or night. It is so vibrant. And I have to say that, you get stuck in your everyday going to work, coming home, homework, cook food, feed the family, get ready for bed. But when people come, then you get to re-explore the city and the country, and it's just so wonderful.
And you see it through their eyes, and you get to appreciate again what it's like.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Kent and I
it
might
makes
show
you
up on your
excited
doorstep.
again.
Kent and I might just
There you
show
go.
up and just go on tour with you then.
I had a friend from Saskatchewan. She promised her daughter that she would take her on a trip when she graduated. And so her daughter graduated in June. She wrote me the other day and she goes, guess what? She picked Turkey. So I was like, I'll send you an itinerary. If you want to do this, here are all the links. Check this out. And she's like, oh my God, this is so much information.
Well, you certainly know enough after living there for so long and being that kind of an agent of change for other people to come there and visit. I'm sure you're great with all the new teachers that arrive, right?
Yeah.
You're a wealth of knowledge, especially after being at several different schools, living on 2 different continents in the same city. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride, that's for sure.
Well, and who would have thought in 2003, I think you said, when you arrived in Istanbul, that you would be there. 2004, that you would be there almost 20 years later.
So I will say, day 3 in Turkey, the school took us on a tour of the old city. And I was walking in Sultanahmet, and I was like, I could be here for a long time. And look at
Found
me.
your home.
Yep. Something clicked, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can wrap it up with that. You know, if our listeners have any questions, they're going to be able to get in touch with you, Tracey. We'll put your information. Maybe we'll share some information later underneath. But to wrap this up, I'd like to thank JP Mint, who is down in Mexico right now. It's getting late for her. She stayed up really late for her friend Tracey. Tracey, thank you very much for coming in from Istanbul and sharing so much time with us. And you can find Tracey in Istanbul for your next tour. I am Greg, the single guy from, room 107, as Kent would say. And the only thing I finally say for our listeners is if you're traveling with more than $10,000 and you're going into Canada, they have dogs that can sniff that kind of money out. So be careful. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on ITP.